I'm very skeptical of the supplement industry in general, even with setting out to build Dendro and deciding to launch a supplement as one of our science-backed tools for consumers to utilize as part of their routine. Was initially very hesitant because, last thing I wanted to do was get kind of bucketed into this like snake oil supplement industry. And actually, as we developed the product over this past year, it only, basically as I learned more, I became even more frustrated with the current status quo of the supplement industry.
Yeah. And
these basic things, the right ingredients in the right form at the right dose, like that should be standard. You would think it should be standard, but it's sadly not. And so when we developed this, basically set out to do everything that I don't like about the supplement industry and bring to market products that we can really stand behind. And again, we're not here claiming it's the be-all, end-all, but can say with confidence, looking at the evidence, looking at the science behind the product, the ingredients, the formulation, the amounts, that it's far better than the current status quo that exists.
Because that's what you should do. You should be able to stand on your product and say, it doesn't matter, have a look at it. Look at all the evidence you want, look at every single ingredient. We will show you what there is in there. Because this is what the evidence says. These 14 million papers in PubMed, when you analyze them for these ingredients, this is what it says. It's safe, it's effective, and it works for that population. And that's all you can do. And once you start having people look at that and know that, they can believe the evidence that's there. They can trust that brand because they know that brand's not lying to them. They're just telling them what's out there. Then that actually starts to turn the wheel in the supplement industry to a more trustworthy place, because it does need to move in that direction.
Yeah, it makes sense. I think there's a lot of science washing that can happen. Even as you mentioned, people can reference studies, but then maybe when you go a layer deeper, it's a study in mice or rats or non-human. It's not a double-controlled randomized trial. I guess that's one of the challenges, is that sometimes the good actors in an industry that unfortunately maybe has a bit too many bad actors can get lost amongst the noise, since it's not just a product game, it's also a marketing game.
Because the term science-backed or science-based is unfortunately bandied around a lot. And we can't expect our consumers to be epidemiologists who can understand or read a paper and understand the meta-analyses or systematic reviews around it. But that's why when these papers are explained to them in plain English or in plain language, whichever way they want to do it, but they understand that, yes, these are looked at in the same kind of people as me. If it was a product for men between the ages of 30 and 50, I would know that it's working for me. That's my kind of thing. So we're not asking people to go out there and do a master's or anything like that, but just have a think about it and try to find that trusted brand for you.
Yeah, and I guess even if you hypothetically could understand it all, most people don't have the time either.
It's not the most fun thing to do, is it?
I guess it depends on the reader.
Yeah.
Well, I guess with that, I think it would be great to transition into some of the ingredients.
Absolutely. Shoot.
It'd be awesome to maybe we just try and structure this as a bit of a lightning round. I'll name an ingredient, and you do your best to provide your evidence-based take on it. Feel free to pass if it's one that doesn't come to mind instantly.
Absolutely.
But first, I think you can probably guess the one I'm going to start with. It's the most popular sleep ingredient on the market, and that is melatonin.
Okay. So melatonin does work. It's melatonin that's produced today is the synthetic analog of the hormone that is produced by the pineal gland of the brain to work. So it does help you get to sleep. But there's an issue, because in most places where melatonin is sold, you'll see the tablets, 5 milligrams, 10 milligrams. I've even seen one of 15, and I was...
Yeah, it's crazy. It's just insane dosages.
Yeah, because studies show and this is something that's been studied so much that the ideal dose is between 0.3 and 1 milligrams. A tiny amount. Because remember, this is the thing.
15x in, I guess, the max dosage that you mentioned there.
This is just something that's needed to help you get to sleep and to feel refreshed afterwards. Overdosing your brain on loads of melatonin, washing it out with it, is not going to have positive effects. You may fall asleep. In fact, you probably will fall asleep. But don't think of sleep as that one event when you've fallen asleep. Think of sleep of falling asleep, staying asleep, waking up feeling refreshed. Think of it as that whole. And that's why with melatonin in those doses it doesn't work. But melatonin has been studied so much, and one of the things that I'll give you the positive first. One of the things that it's really good for is things like jet lag and time changes. That initial, if you've been unwell, you got jet lag because you've gone somewhere else, or you've had this really hard time, it can help you get to sleep. But use it like that emergency break glass to use. Just use it occasionally, a one-off or so on, to help you get back into your routine. But it's not something for everyday use. Yeah,
and I guess just to interject a bit, makes sense when you say that it's good for jet lag. If we think about it being this sort of timing official, you usually need a timing official to reset that clock when you're traveling across multiple time zones.
Yeah, your brain's used to the circadian rhythm of where you live. And I don't think 100,000 years ago it was developed to fly across continents and time zones. So yes, by all means, use it to help you yourself reset your circadian rhythm so that you're able to function well in the place that you're going to be, but not for every day.
Yeah, and maybe last thing before we jump on to the next one, just curious to hear a bit more, especially with some of these higher dosages. Like, is there any risk of it's being habitual or habit forming, and it potentially making your body a bit lazy in terms of its own natural production of melatonin?
So that what you're talking about is a negative feedback loop. Usually when you have a high enough dose of something, it suppresses the body producing that. Actually, that's not really the case with melatonin. As much as it's been extensively studied, you don't really get that. I think the issue that you'll get with having it in high doses for prolonged periods of time is more along the side of its effectiveness. And you may get to a point where your brain's flooded with melatonin every day. It's getting to a point where the receptiveness...
Yeah, you're almost dulling it to your natural production of melatonin.
So from the studies that have been there, you're still getting production. It's not conclusive whether it reduces the output, but there is evidence to say that it does dull the response to it.
That's really interesting to keep in mind. Maybe with that, next one on the list would be magnesium. I know we've briefly touched on it already, but would love to hear your quick take on magnesium. I think this one certainly seems like it's been trending more as it pertains to sleep usage.
And I think that is good because it is important for sleep. Now, magnesium, if you analyze the evidence around it, magnesium is only effective in people that need magnesium supplementation. But actually, there's quite a large proportion of the population that are slightly magnesium deficient. And especially as we get older, you'll find yourself likely to be more magnesium deficient. Magnesium's good for a number of things, but in sleep, I do think it's very important. So the evidence does support the use of magnesium, especially in those who have a magnesium deficiency, and the older you get. But it's important, going back to what we were talking about, is the form that you have it in, because not all magnesium forms are the same. Like you mentioned magnesium oxide, it's not a particularly effective form of magnesium in terms of bioavailability and use. Look for things like magnesium citrate or bisglycinate, which is very good. There are other forms of magnesium which may have bigger claims saying that it does this and does that, but when it comes to the evidence around it, there are some that are really well studied, especially like citrate and bisglycinates.
Okay, that makes sense. All right, next two, but we can take them one at a time. Very popular for not always the use case of sleep, but that would be THC and CBD. So maybe we start with THC.
So THC, I mean, I tend to tackle both of these together. THC being the active component.
Fair enough, as you prefer.
They've been very widely studied, especially recently, especially with the changes in legalization in the US in certain states. It is becoming very widespread in its use. And a lot of anecdotal evidence says that, oh, you take it and you sleep great or everything. There is some evidence to say that some THC will help. There is also lots of evidence to say that CBD actually in smaller doses is actually wakeful. And in higher doses it's depressive and does help you go to sleep. One of the things that people should be very mindful of is not just that. You can't look at an ingredient like THC or CBD and think, okay, what does it do for sleep? And just sleep. And then ignore everything else it does. Because we can't do that. Our life isn't just going to sleep. We've got those 16 hours when we've got to be awake and do everything
we got
else.
Another two-thirds of life.
Absolutely. So when you are thinking of ingredients like that, you have to think of them in their whole. It may, you may take more than a certain dose of CBD, which is known to help with sleep. But then that may have slightly neurodepressive effects or may have other mental effects which aren't as well received by the consumer. And one of the things that with THC and CBD is there's a lot of interpopulation variability. And what I mean by that is how it affects you is not going to be the same as how it affects me. And it's not something that's completely standardized just yet. So I would say personally is give it time, look for more research, and then see how it goes.
Yeah, it's still a bit early.
There's
more work to be done there.
Yeah.
And definitely some nuances, like you said, around the amounts to be extremely mindful of. All right, so next supplement for you would be valerian root. What do you think of that one? I always see that one amongst some other herbs in London when I go into the Boots or Holland and Barrett. It's usually some purple branded.
Well, you can see me shaking my head.
Yeah, I guess the answer's already out for those watching on video.
The evidence for valerian is very poor. So it's not, it probably won't cause you any harm, but it's not going to do anything at all for your sleep. So it's probably best avoided. Okay,
got it. Steer clear of that one. And what about glycine?
So glycine is very interesting because it does have a small effect in reducing core temperature. And like we mentioned, reducing core temperature does help you get to sleep, but you do need it in quite a largish dose. I think it's 3 grams plus to have that effect. And even though it does help in some way, it's probably not as strong as effect as it is on other things. But yeah, glycine does work. There is some evidence for it.
Okay, got it. As long as it's in the right amount, and usually it's a larger amount.
That's
we're
true.
Talking grams as opposed to milligrams.
Yeah, and 3 grams is quite a bit.
Yeah, no, definitely. All right, next one. What about Montmorency tart cherry?
Oh, see, now that's a really interesting one because it's something that's been studied a lot recently. Actually, it's pretty good. And the evidence is pretty good as well. Think of it as a precursor to melatonin and some other adaptogens in the brain. And what they found is that the evidence shows that tart cherry does have that helpful effect with sleep. So it's not an ingredient that I was aware of maybe 2-3 years ago, but the evidence has come out and I have to say it's been pretty good. So it's safe and effective. So definitely one to look out for.
Yeah, I also read some studies on its recovery in athletes, so seemed quite good from a recovery perspective.
So just as we were talking about, you caught me. I was being too focused on sleep, but with all of these things, there are going to be widespread effects. And as long as the effects are positive, then it's always something to go forward with.
Makes sense. All right, another natural plant herb or botanical that I've been really interested in is holy basil. What do you think of holy basil?
So holy basil actually has been in use for, close to 1,000 years.
Yeah.
You wouldn't believe it, but
it's got a long history.
It has got a long history, especially in the Indian subcontinent where it's known as tulsi, and it's actually really good. The more they find out about it, the more effective they're seeing. Not just in sleep, where it's what's called an adaptogen, where it can go ahead and positively affect someone's sleep and in a healthy way as well. But it's one of these compounds that the more they find out about it, the more positive benefits they're seeing to it. And again, I always qualify this with everything. It's safe. And it's effective, and it seems to be effective in most adult populations as well. So, yeah, it's one I look out for, actually.
Nice. That's great to hear. And one more, just cognizant of time. Obviously, we won't have time to cover all the supplements out there, but potentially in a follow-up session, we can cover more. And so the one I was going to ask about is L-theanine. This one seems, I'm seeing it a lot more pop up around sleep.
So L-theanine, there is evidence for, and some of the evidence is quite good. It's just one of those products that's got to be given to the right population in the right dose and in the right form. So I was going to say, I promise I haven't done this so that I'm saying the same things, but it really is that. It's what we're talking about. It's the right ingredient for the right population, the right form in the right amount. And if you do cross all those boxes, then yes, you can find L-theanine to be effective as well.
Yeah, even in terms of a form, I think one interesting one with L-theanine, right, it can be synthetic, but it also can be from natural sources. One of the most popular natural sources is green tea extract, actually. So you need to be very careful. Usually it's not too crazy of an amount. It's usually quite minimal. But with that, there can be traces of caffeine. So if you're a individual that's highly sensitive to caffeine, you need to be mindful.
Absolutely. And I mean, the beneficial side of caffeine is good. So if you're taking L-theanine as part of the green tea extract and you're doing it early in the day, actually that's pretty good. It kind of helps you along with lots of other things. But then possibly using it as a sleep remedy, then you do, like you said, have to look at the caffeine side of things, and just be very careful. Have a look at the labeling when you do look at that. Yeah,
and like you said, there are always so many other benefits. So maybe you take L-theanine in the morning, you get the cognitive benefits, but then also you'll still get the benefits for sleep later on.
Absolutely.
All right, with that, maybe just before we wrap up this lightning round format, any other vitamins or minerals amongst the more popular ones that you think are worth mentioning?
Vitamin D, vitamin D, vitamin D. No, everyone in this country at least is still vitamin D deficient. No matter what. I mean, it's so difficult, and it's such a good vitamin to do. The benefits are so amazing. It's one of the most important things to take. A lot of people, in fact, I'd say 90% of people are going to be vitamin D deficient. And actually, when you want to have the optimum serum level of vitamin D, around 100 nanomoles per litre, that is quite a bit more than most people are going to be currently at. So vitamin D is always good. Yeah, you don't want to be taking 20,000 units every day for 6 months.
You need to be careful.
Yeah, you do have to be careful, but take it from a trusted supplier, from a trusted brand. Then, once in a while, have your doctor just do a vitamin D test, and kind of will guide you if you do a blood test to see how it is. Other than that, some of the B vitamins are also important, especially if your diet isn't the best, like mine. I should always eat more fruits and vegetables. And vitamin C has also got its beneficial parts because it's an acid. The kind of form that vitamin C is taken as a supplement, it actually works synergistically with other ingredients like magnesium, like iron, and so on. So it's a good one to take together. So you want to find something where all these products are put together because there's a reason behind why they're put together. Because you'll find actually with some ingredients they don't work together. and actually they play off against each other. So it's finding that combination is also important.
Yeah, and I guess on that last point too, it's really important to be mindful of that when taking multiple capsules or powders.
Absolutely.
You know, if someone hasn't put in the proper R&D, just because they shove a bunch of ingredients together. In certain cases, it may be synergistic, but like you said, that's not always going to be the case, and it can actually be detrimental.
Very
in
detrimental,
other cases.
Especially, and some really important ones are many female patients suffer from both anemia and low bone mineral density. They're taking calcium and they're taking iron at the same time in their free forms, not knowing that they're completely antagonistic to each other, and they're not absorbing each other. So they're thinking, what's going on? Nothing's working. So you have to be careful. Get advice if you don't know what's going on, or look at articles, but go with a trusted brand that explain why this happens.
Makes sense. All right, that's all the time we have for supplements, although there's many other ingredients we can cover perhaps in a follow-up session.
Sure.
I want to shift to maybe more popular, maybe second, but it's definitely up there in terms of a trending topic as it pertains to sleep, and that would be wearables.
Yes.
So, maybe before we jump into commercially available wearables, actually just be good to understand, like, what's the gold standard of sleep measurement in the lab today?
So the gold standard is something called polysomnography. Sonography.
Yeah, that's a tongue twister. I'm not even going to try and pronounce that. I guess is this PSG?
That's right.
Okay, that's why they have the acronym.
Yeah. But what that does, polysomnography does, is that they're measuring electrical brain activity, they're measuring eye and ocular movement, muscle movement, core temperature. Basically, you look like you've got spaghetti over you. You've got all these wires all over you.
Okay, that's the one with all the wires hooked up to your head. And,
that's right.
Okay. And you usually stay overnight?
Yes, it has to be done in a dedicated center. No one's going to do that at home.
Yeah.
So it is the gold standard, and that's what you'll take if you're going for a clinical measurement of some sleep disorder, and it is the best thing for it. But as you said, it's impractical. So what generally people doing, and these have come on so much recently, is wearables, whether it's your Apple Watch or a ring or a bracelet or whatever. And essentially what these products are accelerometers. So they're looking for movement. They're looking at your heart rate. Some, I think, do temperature and oxygen saturations and everything. I guess you could say they're better than nothing. But I'm always very keen that people don't hang their hopes on these or get too involved with them, because like we said earlier, if you've had a bad night's sleep, you'll wake up and know you've had a bad night's sleep. You don't need your wearable to say, hey, you've had a bad night's sleep. Yeah, I know. But what it can do is it can reaffirm maybe your routine. But a lot of people actually do get hyperfixated on it. And they're constantly looking, thinking, it says it was 20% worse yesterday, but I feel okay. What did I do? And they constantly try to micromanage that thing. Don't look at that. It's like when you're measuring your weight, for example. Best not to do it every single day. Do it once a week. Look at trends. Are you trending better? Great. Are you trending worse? Then maybe you need to change something. So in that sense, I think, they can be a good adjunct to people's health, and they're getting better all the time. But for when it comes to sleep, I wouldn't say it's the be all and end all. Trust in yourself to know what's better.
Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, in certain ways, it's ironic that you can buy this device to improve your sleep, but it can end up creating actually some sleep anxiety that works in the opposite direction. I'm sure you can guess. I've been trying out all sorts of different wearables around this. I think I basically came to the same conclusion as you just mentioned. It's good as a guide, but be careful to not obsess over it too much. And I even discovered there's a whole disorder related to just this, orthosomnia, being this sort of unhealthy obsession with sleep trackers and devices. So I think that's just a good example to be wary of the extreme.
Can you imagine getting stressed about your sleep because of your sleep tracker? That's a vicious circle you don't want to get into.
Exactly. And I mean, I read some studies where they essentially manipulated the sleep score So in people that were sleeping identical amounts, they showed them more positive sleep scores, more negative sleep scores, the actual sleep score itself unadjusted, and it had a significant impact on their day. And the irony is, when I often speak to people using wearables, like, what's the first thing that they do in the morning? They check their wearable, they check their sleep score, and they forget to even ask themselves, how do they feel in the morning? And unfortunately, if you sequence it and let your device tell you how you feel, that actually makes a difference.
Yes, absolutely.
And to go a step further, like, these are directionally good. They're good for trends. Another example would be, I've tried Oura Ring, I've tried the Ultra Human Ring, I've tried the Whoop, tried Within, you name it. I've tried a lot of them. Even the headband Muse, which tries to measure brainwave activity. And the irony is, if I were to wake up in the morning and look at those scores, like, there's quite a big spectrum. It's not always the case, but in certain cases, maybe my Whoop says 100 and my Oura says 90 or 80, and then my Ultra Human says 70, and it's like, depending what wearable I look at, I'm going to have a different kind of day.
Because the accuracy isn't that great for that, and it can't measure things like REM sleep and everything. So it's really difficult. Like you said, use it as an adjunct, use it as a guide, look at the trends, but don't hang your hat on it. Don't have it be the be-all and end-all. Base it on what you feel like. You feel great, carry on doing that.
Makes sense. So I guess to sum it up, we're not anti-wearables, but it's just important to be mindful of using them as a tool in the right way. And for certain people, they can use a wearable without obsessing over it. Other people, it's not necessarily going to be the case. So I guess to each their own in terms of how to use it. But if they do use it, again, not overly fixated on the daily data points, but rather the weekly, monthly, yearly trends and directionally where you're heading. I guess also, as long as you mentioned inaccuracy, I guess as long as that inaccuracy is similar for each device, the trend will be representative.
Yeah, and that's it. When you're looking at trends, it doesn't have to be accurate, 100% accurate. You can just see, as long as, okay, you're getting better, but trust in yourself. It's a good thing because it gives out lots of good data, and that data can be analyzed in lots of ways. But trust in how you feel, trust in your routine, and use that to say, okay, yes, you're right, it is working. Don't look at it first thing in the morning. or resist the urge. At least ask yourself how you feel in the morning. Absolutely.
Before you proceed to look at a score. And I guess that's an interesting experiment, right? To actually see how that matches up. Do you, on average, feel better than your wearable says? Do you feel about the same, or do you feel worse? I was tempted to ask you the question of what's the best wearable, but from what I hear from you, essentially the best wearable is one that you'll wear and not obsess over.
Absolutely.
So next question would just be, what are some of the non-wearable things we can do to monitor our sleep? Are there tests or anything like that can be useful for evaluating
there are clinical tests that we use, the Pittsburgh Insomnia Index, the morning eveningness score that we talked about to find your chronotype. There's lots of these things that people can do, but I would also say with that, don't overthink these things. These can be helpful for clinicians to help, and when they're trying to diagnose a disorder of sleep or some real problem. But with most of them, use these. If you want to take a test, use it, but don't obsess over it. Use it as an adjunct. Go back to how it was. Go back to how you feel, how much you think you slept, how you feel in the morning, how you feel during the day. That's important as well. So go more to that. And what I tend to do is ask people to write a diary. And in that diary, say, give scores. How did I sleep? How did I feel in the morning? How did I feel in the evening? How tired did I get? Things like that. And that feeling is probably the more important thing to look out for, because that's what we're trying to change in the end. A score means nothing. You're not treating the score. You want to treat the person.
That makes sense. And with that, I think we're about at time today. So I just want to give you a big thanks for coming in.
It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, we covered a ton of useful stuff, from the highest level, what is sleep, why we sleep, what actually is good sleep health, as well as no shortage of tips and tricks for people to approach, achieving better sleep. So thanks again so much for the time. Really appreciate it, and look forward to the next session.
Absolutely. Thank you as well.